It has been a source of immense satisfaction to me that the original two-volume biography, Hitler, 1889 to 1936 Hubris, and Hitler, 1936 to 1945 Nemesis, published in 1998 and 2000 respectively, was so well received, as also in the numerous countries where foreign language editions were published. The warm reception in Germany was particularly gratifying. My biography was above all intended to be a study of Hitler's power. I set out to answer two questions. The first was how Hitler had been possible. How could such a bizarre misfit ever have been in a position to take power in Germany, a modern, complex, economically developed, culturally advanced country? The second was how, then, Hitler could exercise power. He had great demagogic skill, certainly, and combined this with a sure eye for exploiting ruthlessly the weakness of his opponents. But he was an unsophisticated autodidact, lacking all experience of government. From 1933, he had to deal not just with Nazi roughnecks, but with the government machine and circles used to ruling. How could he then so swiftly dominate the established political elites, go on to draw Germany into a catastrophic high-risk gamble for European domination with a terrible, unprecedented genocidal program at its heart, block all possibilities of a negotiated end to the conflict, and finally kill himself only when the arch-enemy was at his very door and his country physically and morally in total ruins? I found the answer to these questions only partially in the personality of the strange individual who presided over Germany's fate during those 12 long years. Of course, personality counts in historical explanation. It would be foolish to suggest otherwise, and Hitler, as those who admired him or reviled him agreed, was an extraordinary personality, though, however varied and numerous the attempts at explanation are, only speculation is possible on the formative causes of his peculiar psychology. Hitler was not interchangeable. The type of individual that Hitler was unquestionably influenced crucial developments in decisive fashion. A Reich Chancellor Goering, for instance, would not have acted in the same way at numerous key junctures. It can be said with certainty, without Hitler, history would have been different. But Hitler's disastrous impact cannot be explained through personality alone. Before 1918, there had been no sign of the later extraordinary personal magnetism. He was seen by those around him as an oddity, at times a figure of mild scorn or ridicule, definitively not as a future national leader in waiting. From 1919 onwards, all this changed. He now became the object of increasing, ultimately almost boundless, mass adulation, as well as intense hatred from his political enemies. This, in itself, suggests that the answer to the riddle of his impact has to be found less in Hitler's personality than in the changed circumstances of a German society traumatized by a lost war, revolutionary upheaval, political instability, economic misery, and cultural crisis. At any other time, Hitler would surely have remained a nobody. But in those peculiar circumstances, a symbiotic relationship of dynamic and ultimately destructive nature emerged between the individual with a mission to expunge the perceived national humiliation of 1918 and a society ready more and more to see his leadership as vital to its future salvation, to rescue it from the dire straits into which, in the eyes of millions of Germans, defeat, democracy, and depression had cast it. To encapsulate this relationship as the key to understanding how Hitler could obtain, then exercise his peculiar form of power, I turned to the concept of charismatic authority as devised by the brilliant German sociologist Max Weber, who died before Hitler had been heard of, at least outside Munich beer halls. I did not elaborate on this concept, which had figured prominently in my writing on Hitler and the Third Reich over many years. It lay unmistakably, however, at the heart of the inquiry.